So in this video, we're going to have a chat about the Altra Olympus 4, particularly in relation to its application as a long distance through hiking shoe. In other words, with the priority being in durability and comfort. So for better or for worse, this is the shoe that I've decided to use for my upcoming through hike this summer. And if you are considering this shoe, then I think there's some things that you really should know about it before you lay down the price for the shoe, which is not insignificant. It is one of the more expensive shoes on the market. I did pay the money myself. This is not a sponsored review. So everything I'm sharing in this video is my own opinion based on what I've done so far, which is a 3-day hike in the Pyrenees and a couple of trail runs on Montserrat behind me. All right, with that out of the way, let's get into the review. So first, let's talk about why I would choose a shoe like this for an 800-kilometer through hike. Well, firstly, I prefer trail runners to boots. I find boots too heavy. I'm much more nimble in a light trail runner. Secondly, I prefer shoes that are wider, that allow my toes to spread out naturally. I feel like that gives me more stability. It's a much healthier position for the foot to be in, as opposed to narrow trail runners that really just kind of squish your foot together. And over 800 kilometers, that can have a negative impact on the health of your foot and the outcome of your trip. Secondly, this is a zero drop shoe, which means there's no difference between the heel height and the foot height. And what's different with that is a lot of other trail runners will generally have a higher heel height, and so the foot is slanting down slightly. And there's certainly an advantage to that, but for me personally, I want to move more in the direction of zero drop. If you've seen some of my other videos, you probably know that already. The shoe that I used for a very similar trip that I did last year was the New Balance Hero V5. That has an 8mm drop, so I'm looking to slim that down a lot more. And I've been gradually integrating this shoe into my training and into my hiking to allow my feet and my calves and my ankles to adapt to this newer style of shoe with a zero drop. So if you are thinking about going in this direction, it's important that you don't implement more time than 5% each week. You want to do this really gradually, allow your body to catch up. And in conjunction with that, I'd recommend checking out my mounted proof ankles routine for strength and mobility. You'll see that in my injury playlist, with a whole bunch of other videos that could be useful if you're a through hiker or a trail runner struggling with some injuries along the way. So that's the main reason why I chose these shoes. But this shoe is also really heavy on features, and I'm going to go through those now. So I think one of the features that stands out for a lot of people with the Olympus 4 is that it has a Vibram sole, which a lot of Ultras do. But this one is a Mega Grip sole, which I think offers the most grip from the Vibram range and the most traction. You can see that on each lug, there's kind of 2 teeth. And what I find really interesting about this design is that each lug can move independently. As I press down on each one, the rest of the sole stays relatively still. And that means that as you're going over rocks and tricky terrain, you can have that individual portion of the sole absorb that pressure from the rock without it adjusting the entire shoe. And from all reports so far, this is a relatively durable sole. You can see some wear and tear happening there already. And I've only done about 100 kilometers. So whilst it is the more durable type of Vibram sole, I'm not 100% sure that this is going to be offering a lot of grip and a lot of traction at the end of my trip of 800 kilometers. So I guess we'll find out. But the shoe that I did use last year on a very similar trip had a Vibram sole as well. And that was just about gone, and it was almost flat by the end of the trip. However, the rubber is still really good, so it was still offering a lot of grip, and I still have those shoes. And I was still running in them up until the point that I got the Olympus 4. So Vibram or Vibram rubber is always a good thing to look out for. So as we move up the shoe, you'll notice there's a big, nice, roomy toe box, which is very typical of Ultra. There's a little toe cap around the outside here, which I'll talk about later. We have this upper mesh, which apparently is more durable than the last model, but I'm not sure about that. Again, we'll talk about that later. One of the features that I like about the laces is that we have 2 holes here, and that enables you to do a lace lock technique, which is really helpful for locking down the laces, getting a really snug fit in the shoe. And speaking of snug fit, we have a really lightly cushioned tongue, very thin, that allows you to get a really precision fit with the laces. You can tie them down really snug over your foot and not have the tongue get in the way, which I like as well. This is quite a low cut ankle here. For me, that's not a problem at all. I don't mind that. I've seen it in a few other reviews that people weren't happy about that. They felt like it wasn't stable enough. But I really think the stability comes from the heel and the base of the shoe here, which you can see is super wide. I mean, your ankle would be here and that is a really, really wide base, and I think that is what is responsible for preventing a lot of overpronation or supination on trails. The back of the shoe here, you'll notice, has a gaiter trap. I have been using OR trail gaiters. To me, they feel a little bit forced. The OR gaiters that I'm using are a few years old. I don't think they're the best design, so I might even try and get a pair of Altra gaiters. Obviously, that's probably going to provide the best fit. But that gaiter trap, if you're not sure what that is a little, a little Velcro strap that enables you to put the heel side of your gaiters in there and close it up. It also has a gaiter hook on the front there that you can see, which again, if you're using the Ultra gaiters, probably works perfectly, but for mine, it's a little bit too far forward. Okay, now let's talk comfort, which is obviously a huge priority. If you are a thru hiker, you're going to be potentially doing 800 or 1,000 more miles or kilometers doing this shoe, so comfort is super important. We have an EVA midsole here with a 33mm stack height, meaning your whole foot is 33mm off the ground thanks to that very cushiony EVA midsole. When I put these shoes on for the first time in the store, I immediately felt very, very comfortable, partly because my toes were able to splay out and sit naturally, but also because there is a hell of a lot of cushion in this shoe. Over time, that cushion kind of condenses a little bit and it gets a little bit less comfortable. For me, so far, that hasn't happened. A similar thing happened with my Hero V5s last year, and you know, I'm expecting that, and I think it'll be absolutely fine. The one thing that I was warned about my upcoming trip was to get a shoe with a decent rock plate. As far as I'm aware, this shoe doesn't have a rock plate at all, which kind of worries me, but again, last year I didn't have a rock plate in my New Balance Hero V5s and that was absolutely fine, so I guess we'll find out. For me, doing the research, trying to find the perfect shoe for this upcoming trip, there just wasn't a wide zero drop shoe that had a decent rock plate. The closest thing that I could find was the Innovate Rock Light, and just a little bit too narrow. For me, I always prioritize having a wide foot first, and then anything that comes after that is a luxury. I'm wearing a size US 11.5, and they are a little on the heavy side, 355 grams on my scale. And for a lot of trail runners, they'll say that that is way too heavy, but for me, coming from a hiking background, used to wearing mountaineering boots and hiking boots, which are of course very heavy, 355 grams per shoe is not really a problem for me. I actually find them quite light on trail and I feel very nimble, and I'm super happy with the weight. It's not a problem at all. So far it seems all good. You know, we've got a wide shoe, zero drop, super comfy EVA midsole, lots of features and interesting things going on in this shoe. But there's got to be something wrong with it, right? And I think that it's the same problem that Ultras always have, and it's the reason why I haven't bought Ultras until now. In fact, to be honest with you, the only reason that I'm wearing these shoes is because I wanted to try something different for myself and also for you guys, just to have some new experiences and share some knowledge on some different products. So whilst the smart decision for me is probably just to stick to something I know that works, like the New Balance Hero V5, I wanted to try Ultras just because they're the go-to through hiking shoe. I felt I needed to try them out. And so the one thing that's always concerned me about Ultras is their durability. I've seen countless photos of the foot box here just completely wearing through, where you have someone's pinky toe basically pointing out the outside of the shoe, and that is not something I want. So I am naturally very concerned about that. And what makes this even more concerning is that even after one trip, you can see that there's already a pretty sizable hole there. So I'm not sure how that happened. You know, towards the end of the trip, I just glanced down and noticed that there was some serious wear. I've put some shoe goo on the inside there just to prevent any more wear and tear happening there. Also put some gear aid on the inside to give it some extra support. I was talking to a couple of other people on Instagram that have this shoe and are having this problem already, and we've been talking back and forth about what we can do about this. And it's a real shame because this shoe is basically the perfect shoe for me. It's got everything that I want and need, but it's just such a shame that it's going to fall apart. You know, it's inevitable. After only 50 kilometers of hiking, you have a hole like that. It's crazy. This mesh was supposed to be more durable than the previous model. I hate to see what the last model was like, because yeah, this is a huge fail. You know, and this is not an isolated incident. You can see on the other shoe here, it's already starting to happen. It's not as bad, but there is some definite wear and tear on this side of the shoe. And to be honest, I have a lot of reservations about this shoe. I'm gonna keep wearing it over the next 2 months to see how that hole develops, to see if my little patch job with shoe goo will hold there. But honestly, if it comes down to it and it's still wearing out, then I'm just gonna have to buy a whole new pair of shoes and start fresh just before my hike starts, which is not ideal. So aside from that durability issue, which is really a big issue, it might actually prevent me from wearing this shoe for its intended purpose, there is another drawback in that this shoe is quite expensive. I think this is probably one of the more expensive trail shoes that I've ever seen, at 170 euros, which is what I paid for the shoe, and it's also $170 in the US. So they're the things that I think you should know if you're considering buying this shoe. Obviously there's a whole lot of other technical aspects and nuance that I haven't talked about, but just from my experience and what I've done so far, and that durability issue, obviously that's something you want to take into account, and it may change your decision about whether this is the right shoe for you. So my experience in this shoe so far has been really great. I mean, I've done that 3-day hike in the Pyrenees, which you can see the vlog of. They performed really well. I was particularly impressed with how well they performed in the snow. There seems to be a bit of a hard edge around there, which enabled me to get a really good grip. The responsiveness on, you know, more alpine rock is great. I've been trail running on some very loose, some really technical terrain here at Montserrat, and a couple of just regular trail runs on the small hills around Barcelona have given me a really good experience of this shoe so far. I hope that has helped. I'll keep you updated in the future about whether I end up using this shoe or not, and if I do use it on my thru hike, whether it survives in one piece. You can't have everything. Obviously, I thought I was going to be able to have everything with this shoe, but apparently not. All right, thanks for watching. I hope that's helped, and if you've got any questions, put them in the comments section below. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you on the summit.